What's the creepiest thing someone has ever told you? When I was a child, an adult male family member told me he would get perverse pleasure in making me cry. In my 30s now, and if I have to cry, I still make every effort to do it in private. Your pheromones smell good. I was a 16-year-old girl. The person saying it was my stepfather. We were alone in the car together on an hour-long drive. Once when I was 11, I was eating a popsicle on the promenade when a homeless man came up to me and whispered in my ear that I have a very sexy mouth. I've never eaten a popsicle or ice cream in public since. I was staying with my friend, who has a 4-year-old son. She informed me as we were going to bed that sometimes her son sneaks in her room at like 4 a.m., sits under the bed, and whispers to himself. I slept well that night, ha ha ha. All women should be raped to put them in their place. Yeah, I don't associate with him anymore. This was stupid on my part. Met up with a guy the first knew from a video game. He gets in my car and the first thing he does is whip out a knife and tell me he likes knives. Knew I would never do that shit again after that. When I was 16, I had a male therapist tell me that men can't help feeling attracted to me because my eyes and lips make me look like I'm aroused. I was speaking to him partly because I had been assaulted by an adult male that year. I was so embarrassed I never told anyone about this, and I am still mad at myself for not saying anything. I work in healthcare. I once had a doctor walk up behind me, grab my hair, which I wore in braids or a bun, and tell me, "I bet when someone wants to take you they grab you and take you." I just tried to laugh it off, but I was shocked. When in school, I had a rotation on a psych unit and one of the patients was describing this woman he saw through the window and how he wanted to kill her and do horrific things to her on the hood of his car. Then he looked at my classmates and said that he would do it to them too. Needless to say, he got to stay on the unit longer because of that. A guy once told me that before he died, he wanted to kidnap someone, tie them up, and experiment with cannibalism. He said he was so curious how someone's face cheek tasted. Back in middle school, a girl asked me if I had a peanut allergy. Being the dumb 7th grader I was, I said no and didn't think much of it. Turns out, she was intending to give someone an allergic reaction. My friend overheard her talking about it and told a teacher before telling me. It's one of those scenarios where it isn't creepy outright, just a little weird without context. But when you know the context, it becomes disturbing. A girl in middle school told me she had a hit list. It wasn't exactly a secret, it was literally written on the cover of her binder entitled, "People to Kill." I wish I was kidding. When I was at university, during the summer I go back home and work on farms, mostly picking up hay. Every year there'd be different workers. Some good, some bad. Some, well, one, downright scary. This one bloke had been in the mongrel mob, a gang in New Zealand which tends to attract the absolute scum of society. He, though, wasn't too bad a chap. Quite funny and hardworking. Just what you want on your team when you're spending 10 hours a day picking up hay bales. One day, I was driving the truck to another farm with him riding shotgun. We started talking about one of the other workers. I knew him from uni and he had come up for the work on my suggestion. At uni he seemed a decent sort, but he soon showed his true colors of being a useless, racist poss. I was complaining about the useless prick, apologizing for being responsible for him being there. I jokingly suggested maybe we could arrange a farm accident. Tractor back over him, a stack of hay bales collapse on him. That sort of thing. At this point the mongrel mobster casually mentioned he knew people who, for just $5,000, would kill and dispose of anyone. Said they had a setup out in the bush. NZ speak for middle of nowhere, where they'd feed the body to pigs then dispose of any remains, teeth, bones, in an acid bath. The completely casual way he spoke of this was really unsettling. One of my friends was telling me about a really homophobic part of Canada that she lives in. She said when she was around 14 a group of older, cool, kids in her school came up to her and pinned her against the wall and proceeded to carve F***GGOT on her back somewhere around her shoulder. She isn't even gay. She just dressed like guys sometimes and wasn't really girly, so they automatically assumed she was gay. People are awful, man. Worked in a phone and gambling betting place in Oz while I was traveling and mainly did the night shift. One of the regulars was winning a lot and kept placing higher and higher bets, which is a red flag. I asked him about how his night's going and why the big bets, and he told me it's the anniversary of his son's suicide and he was trying to lose all his money and do the same, but he kept winning. After this he didn't call again. Police were called and they did a check-in and he ended up getting rushed to the hospital but was okay and betting again the next week normally and acted like nothing had ever happened. It was the most normal tone. He said it on the phone and even laughed at, "I am just trying to lose my money and end it all, but just my luck, I can't even lose," sort of comment that creeped me out and that I've probably thought about this more than he has since it happened. If the purge ever happened in this school, I would rape you. Back when I was 17, my French high school teacher was clearly hitting on me. She'd always tell me how much she thinks I'm great, even though I wasn't that good in her class. But one time, it got really creepy. She started by doing the usual, but then started to touch my face and caress it. She then said, "I think you're good looking." I don't remember what she said exactly, but it boils down to that. At that point, young me realized what was going on, and I kept avoiding these situations, but it was super creepy, considering she was in her 50s. Was in the middle of a shift, working in retail. It was probably late at night and this middle-aged woman came through my line. She stared at me for a solid minute or so before asking me to remove my face mask so she could see my face. I was super confused but did it anyways. She then handed me a card and told me she wanted to cut my hair and then left. Literally the most bizarre thing to ever happen to me. She has come through my line a few more times after that and all she does is stare at me while I'm checking her out, and at the end she'll mumble about when I'm getting to let her cut my hair. I was in an argument online a few years ago and had a guy threaten to rape and kill me in front of my entire family just because I disagreed with something in the fandom we were talking about. I was hosting a Super Smash tournament back in college. One guy who entered was chatting with me, and the next sentence came out freakishly monotone. "If we become friends, I want to tell you I am very controlling." Notepad right out of that. My wife's cousin told me my daughters were very hot. He was 31. My children were 5, 6 and 8. The one that sticks out the most is when I was 18 and working in a music store. A man asked for some help finding some CDs, so he gives me the names and I don't see it on the shelf, but we had all of our understock under the shelves, so I went on my hands and knees to look, found the CDs and grabbed the albums he wanted. Stood up and said, "Here you go. That should all the ones you wanted." And before I could say anything he goes, "I bet you spend a lot of time of your hands and knees, huh?" In a rather sexual suggestive tone. I had no idea what to do, so just awkwardly giggled and asked if he needed any more help finding things, and he said no, so then I quickly ran into the back and waited 5-ish minutes for him to check out and leave. A priest used to visit my primary school, not sure what this is in USA. 5 to 12-year-old, to do confessions. We didn't get to see him as he sat behind a board. All I could see was his shoes. He told me I had been bad and I was going to hell. I can't remember what I did as a child to warrant going to hell. Not the scariest sounding story, but it scared the shit out of 9-year-old me. I went to middle school in a not-so-good neighborhood, so lots of kids were involved in gang activity. This one kid had some anger issues but honestly wasn't a bad person and we got along well. One day in class he leans over and asks, "Do you want to see it?" And before I could reply he flashes a gun from his bag. Immediately my face fell and he follows it up with, "Don't worry, you're good." This could have very easily been a much worse situation. Middle school me wasn't smart enough to tell anyone, but I told him to leave it home since the staff could check our lockers and bags. I wasn't worried about him using it in school, but I should have been. Thank goodness nothing ever happened. 1. Some people think incest is wrong. But if it's consensual, I don't see the issue, and I think you are attractive. What do you say? Age 18. Relative was 40 plus, 2. We can make sure no one ever finds you if you come with us. Just put on this dress and pantyhose, read the Bible, and then pray about it. Age 14. When I was 6 or 7 we went to the Iowa State Fair. As we were walking a clown ran up to me, held me close and whisper in my ear, "Where have you been all my life?" Then ran away. Creepy as shit, and I've hated clowns since then. Sophomore year I went to a party with some seniors. A middle schooler showed up and told us she had weed. She went to the bathroom and got high and then basically told me she was horny. She was like 12. I left shortly after. I had a regular that used to come in and was always very pleasant. One day he was telling me that a city that he used to live in used to have a problem where dead prostitutes would be found on the shores of the river. The way he said it and the look on his face came across as if he was bragging about it. His whole face lit up when he was telling me about it. I didn't see him after that day. I think I had put in my notice, but it was an unnerving experience with a guy who if you saw on the street you wouldn't think twice about him. Do you want to play the rape game? It was a joke in a super public place surrounded by friends, but I slipped away and never forgot. I was at a club once when I was 19, and some loser kept following my friend and I around, despite repeatedly asking him to leave us alone. We were at the bar ordering shots and he came up behind me, put his hand on the back of my neck and said, "Let's not turn this rape into a murder." I absolutely flew into a rage, to which he obviously said, "It was just a joke," and I punched him in the face. Then a bouncer threw me over his shoulder and kicked me out because I started a fight. My brother, who has been addicted to drugs in the past, told me a story about a meth binge I'll never forget. He claimed to have been up for about 2 weeks straight on the stuff, and on the last night he was alone, driving around at night, and said he felt like he was the only person in the world. No other cars or people were in his perception. He made to his driveway and said the moment he turned off the car, there was suddenly a massive army of shadow people outside his car, kicking and screaming at him. He said it felt like someone was shaking the car around and trying to open the door. He decided to open it, and as soon as he did they all vanished and he was alone again. He said that experience made him eventually quit and he has been clean for over a year now. I was at the bus stop one day on the way to a friend's house. Some random guy comes out the Save-A-Lot across the street and just stares at me. Literally as the bus is pulling up he says, "Girl, I'd titty fuck the shit out of you." I was so fucking lost and creeped out. Mind you, I'm in high school and still had on my uniform. Till this day nothing can top that nonsense. SNIIIIIIIIFFFFFFF You have beautiful hair. Carrot said to me by random guy at the dollar store when I was around 10 or so. When I was in my 8th grade year of middle school I knew a kid who was super weird. He had an obsession with the devil. He constantly talked about it. He actually wasn't a bad kid. He got decent grades and never got in trouble and dressed pretty average. No goth or emo styles to him at all. One day I'm hanging out with him on the playground before school started and he said, "Can I tell you something?" I replied, "What's up, man?" He then goes on to tell me, "The devil told me that my sister is going to die soon." I tried telling my mom but she yelled at me and told me I was going insane. Well, I told him to tell the school counselor and they had him talk to some therapist. 2 years would come and go and by then went to different high schools. My sophomore year I would come to find out that his sister died of some kind of spinal tumor. Towards the end of our marriage, my ex-husband got really angry with me one day and began to explain in detail how he could murder me and get away with it. He laid out every detail and gave rationales behind each one to prove why his method would be foolproof and result in him never getting caught. It really made me open my eyes to his abuse and fear for my life, knowing he had been meticulously planning this out in his head. It made it worse that he had gotten to the point that he was comfortable sharing this with me, as if I wouldn't be around long enough to do anything about it. I was sitting on a train in the Bay Area, gross ass Bart, and some guy dressed in a 3-piece suit walks up to me and sits directly across from me. I had my headphones in as we West Coasters don't want to be bothered and he taps my leg gesturing to ask me something. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're going to have a terrible, terrible life," then got up and walked away. That was 4 years ago, so I'm still waiting for the terrible part to happen. Ever, when a grown man was mad at me for accidentally putting his food order wrong when I was a waitress. He became so irate that he promised to cut my brake lines and glue my legs shut after he assaulted me. Recently, someone told me I look fetus-like to compliment my youthful look. My close friend was at university with a man who went on to become a serial killer. His case gained notoriety in the UK and abroad when his crimes were exposed. He and my friend were in the same small friendship group, and she tells tales of what he was like back then. Knowing what he went on to do, I find them all incredibly unsettling. One thing is that he apparently liked to play with girls' long hair, because he liked that hair was alive and dead at the same time. The girls found it creepy at the time but didn't think too much of it. Years later, after becoming a high-flying banking professional in Hong Kong, he tortured and murdered 2 female sex workers. Your sister is hot. She's 15, dude is 40, so I reported him to HR lol. I was 6. I was walking down the sidewalk with my cousins. Some homeless man grabs my arm and holds me. My cousins kept walking and didn't realize at first. The old homeless man points to some building across the street and says to me, "Your daddy's in there." My mother, brother, and I went down to the shore to spend time with my mom's side of the family. My dad didn't come because he wasn't able to get off of work. I was confused as hell. I was like, what? My dad's not there. My dad's at home. And this man held me tighter and kept repeating, "Your daddy's in there." A few minutes later, my cousins realized I was missing and came back for me. They asked me what that was about and I told them. We were all pretty young at the time and didn't fully understand, but I think I almost got kidnapped. We didn't tell our parents or anything because I don't think any of us realized the potential danger I was in. It was wild. I had a coworker tell me, I could probably just kill someone and not feel anything about it. Especially if they had it coming, mind you. This was after we got done chatting about his mutually toxic relationship. We were both high on homegrown tincture at a cabin in the backwoods somewhere, and my friend turned to me fully serious and said, "I see people who aren't there. Even when I'm sober. Do you see them now?" No, but there were others with us in the hot tub earlier. That messed me up for the rest of the weekend. In high school, a girl a year older than me wrote, "Death waits for no one," in my yearbook. She passed away a few years later and I still think about what she wrote. Edit. Some of you have asked, she passed away in a car accident. Not told me but showed me. When I was in middle school, this girl sat by me at the lunch table and showed me that she carved my name into her arm and then went on to tell me she loved me. I had never said anything more than hi while walking by her before that. As a child, there was a girl that was friend with my cousin who developed an obsession with me. She found my number and would call my house phone asking about me daily. In 8th grade, she got my phone number and would send me voicemails and call me at super late hours. The most disturbing thing she ever left me said, "If I can't be with you, I will pluck your eyes out with a fork and keep them in a jar." I have very light hazel eyes and that's what started it all. Thanks for watching. See you later.